So the first thing we get into then is we get into European Chemicals Agency accounts, user accounts, and EU legal entities. Right? These are the kinds of things that we have to set up in order to make submissions in the first place. So one of the problems is that SCIP notifications are only permitted by companies registered as a legal entity using an address within an EU member state. It has to be an EU company, right? It cannot be a foreign company that's registering and making submissions. So this has created a lot of issues for foreign companies that are trying to meet their customer requirements. So they have run afoul because they didn't realize that this was the case and tried to put a process in place that they weren't able to execute. Some EU companies have registered as legal entities only to discover that they were rejected when they submitted because they used the wrong address. And they didn't realize that until they had their IT systems in place, all the data was collected, all the dossiers were built. Then they submitted them and realized we don't even have an entity we can submit with. Other issues we saw is that some non-EU companies who they have done that, they've registered under the foreign address. Well, they have an EU office, so they decide, well, you use that address. Well, you can't just go in and change the address of an entity and turn it into an EU entity. You would actually have to go create a new entity, right? So that's an issue. The other issue we've seen is because some well-meaning company employees will set up their own accounts, they'll actually create redundant legal entities for the company. And then the European Chemicals Agency has to be contacted to delete those as well. So the lack of understanding on how to set up and manage a legal entity and user accounts has created a lot of problems and a lot of confusion. And that is one of the main problems that we've seen. Now, another issue that we've seen is that any individual can create an ECHA Cloud Services user account, and then they can use that account to register a legal entity. That goes back to what I was saying about well-meaning employees. So what's happened is a company goes, they review the ECHA guidance. This is how you create a user account. This is how you create a legal entity. They send their employees to that link. Read these instructions and set up your account. Every employee goes and sets up a user account and a legal entity. Now there's all these redundant entities formed in the system for your company, right? So that has been a huge problem. We've seen that happen over and over. So just be sure you're in control of those, right? Now, users can be members of multiple EU legal entities. They can be designated as a foreign user to an EU entity, allowing non-EU representatives to make these notifications on behalf of an EU company, further clouding this, further confusing people as they try to understand how they can set these up, who they can give access to and who they can't. And that rolls into another challenge that we've seen, and that's a lack of understanding of foreign user access versus S2S or system-to-system key access. Foreign user accounts allow non-EU individuals or representatives from non-EU companies to make notifications directly to the portal on behalf of your European company, of a EU duty holder. Whereas an S2S key allows electronic data systems to do that. So an S2S key, it gives access to an electronic system. A foreign user account gives an individual person rights to do things within your account as if they're representing you, right? So there's a big difference between those two. Duty holders have not been clear on this, and they've stumbled through this, not understanding when they need to provide the S2S key, when they need to give someone foreign user access. They're giving foreign user access to all these different people. Some solution providers are demanding a foreign user account instead of just an S2S key. So there's a lot of confusion out there, and it's creating problems for companies as they try to put their process together. So the lessons learned here, right? So from an EU accounts and EU legal entities perspective, we need to consider our entire corporate structure, current and future, as well as which supply chain actors will have notification obligations prior to creating any legal entities or involving individual users. Don't just send your users off to create accounts and worry about it later. You need to get in front of that. Centralized legal entity management is the key. One person is the legal entity manager. He creates the legal entity, or if it pre-exists, he gets assigned legal manager role, illegal entity manager role, then he could invite users to that legal entity. They will be guided through the user accounts creation process by the system and automatically attached to that legal entity, and they will not be offered the option to create a legal entity. Therefore, they will never create a duplicate one, right? So this is the way to do it, is to centralize this management and not just allow everybody to go create their own accounts. If you are creating a new entity, make sure you're using an EU address. Obviously, it won't work if you don't. Don't try to enter in a foreign address, create the entity, and then try to change it later. that also won't work. Trust me, I tried it. Okay, so regarding ECHA accounts and EU legal entity accounts, only provide foreign user accounts to representative or consultants that you want to submit or manage SCIP notifications on your behalf. For third-party providers that are using system to system, they only need the S2S key. They don't need to be a foreign user, right? So a provider like GreenSoft that's using a software tool like GreenSoft Data Manager only needs to enter the S2S key in there that you've provided them, and they can make submissions on your behalf. You don't have to give them access to your entity, to your account. You don't have to let them be a user of your account, okay? So just keep in mind that there's differences here, but both of these elements were added to allow you to bring in external resources for account access. So these are there for you to use, just use them right.
Learn more by viewing the full-length video online at greensofttech.com/videos. Plus, learn about our environmental regulation solutions online at greensofttech.com.